What is up, friends? This video is going to be a partner video to a share that I'm adding to my Facebook page from Gait Happens. Gait Happens is an amazing resource for movement mechanics, physical therapy, with the orientation of how to strengthen our bodies through empowering our gait cycle, through a stronger, more injury preventative, body fortifying gait cycle. Gait cycle meaning the way you walk or the way you run. That I've shared before that is a really powerful vantage point to work on your health, since every step you take, if you take steps in the world, every step you take is either contributing to your health or is slowly chipping away at it if you're doing it in a way that's deleterious to your joints, your connective tissue, your muscles, your posture, etc. All right, a lot of our health starts in just the way we move, and honestly, it's almost like a definitional part of being a bipedal, meaning two-legged animal, to walk. So start with the basics. Okay, the exercise today was in what I think of as a family of exercises that are geared towards hip stabilization in the walking or running gait. There was some reference to running in this actual post, but it applies to both in with only slight variation, slight difference. The family of exercises are those that bring the pelvis in relationship to the thigh into internal and external rotation. Other exercises I love from this family are things like curtsy squats or clams, like Pilates floor work clams you might have done. Or one of my absolute favorites is hip airplanes, which I'll quickly show you just because it doesn't sound like it would necessarily be named this, but the exercise I'm referring to is when you are on one leg and you bring your pelvis towards the femur into internal rotation, and then use that activation of your glutes and the hip stabilizers to bring it into external. So internal to external rotation. Check the parallel this has to the exercise I'm about to show you. This exercise happens to really work some of the balance pieces of gait as well. So there's sort of the entree of the hip strengthening, and then you've got the side dishes and the side benefits of balance work. This exercise from Gait Happens does all the same exercise for the hip control and the hip strengthening, but also adds the piece of mobility that might be lacking by making it a floor exercise, which may or may not be challenging for you. So the floor exercise here, the starting position rather than standing, is what's known as 90-90. 90-90 meaning it's referring to the angle at your hip and knee on both sides. This for me today is quite challenging. My hips are feeling a little bit tight. There's actually a reason for that. I've been keeping them on the tighter side for some sensitivity that I was getting from overstretch. So listen to your body. There is no perfect shape that you need to achieve to get benefit out of an exercise. If you can't get benefit out of an exercise without putting yourself into pain, meaning not muscular burn, not productive discomfort, but actual pain at a joint, discomfort at a joint, nerve pain, etc., that exercise on that day is not for you. So just please always listen to your body, okay? So don't take 3 steps back to try to go 1 forward. No. Okay, so say if a 90-90 position is not for you today, maybe you can do a shin box, which is a slightly more comfortable angle for the hip and knees, right? Slightly less demanding than wedging them into the 90-90. Either way, what matters in this exercise isn't just the starting position, although working towards a 90-90 or even the shin box is probably productive for you, okay? So if you really can't get anywhere close, doesn't mean you don't want to work towards it, just don't force it, okay? And there's ways you can make this exercise more accessible to your body, like bolstering your butt on a towel or like a rolled up towel or a yoga block or something like that if you wanted. But let's just start with you can achieve this position. It's kind of like the standing on one leg airplane exercise. There's a certain level of challenge just in the setup. Okay, so here we go. I'm in my mobility focused setup in this ground position. What am I doing at my glutes, and what is she talking about in Gait Happens? She's emphasizing the importance of the eccentric loading of your glutes in gait. What is she talking about, right? In this particular exercise, where's your eccentric phase and where's your concentric phase if I'm with respect to my glutes in the way they are moving in and controlling my movement in this exercise? Specifically, we're talking about the forward fold at the hip, not the back. That's important. If I just round my back and roll over my leg, my glutes really didn't do anything because they didn't get moved, right? My glutes go from the top of my pelvis roughly to my femur. If I round my back, no glute activation. If you can't fold at your hip, then this might not be an exercise you can do yet. You're going to work on it. Instead, if you can, you're going to bring the base of your belly and you're going to put your pelvis and your spine. You're going to combine your pelvis and spine so that they move as a unit. Notice my pelvis can either stay with my leg and my spine moves, or I can fix my pelvis to my spine so that as I come forward, I'm actually getting the movement pelvis relative to femur. Okay, that's what I'm looking for because I want this to be a glute-focused exercise. This may be obvious, but I want to point it out in case it's not. So the eccentric loading phase, which is the equivalent of when my foot strikes the ground and is preventing this corkscrewing, what would be a corkscrewing of internal rotation at this, the leg that hits the ground. Instead, I'm going to load this glute and I'm going to bring my body forward, squeezing my butt and driving that thigh into the ground, the outside of that thigh. You can't see it, but it's driving into the ground, engaging the glute, helping me turn this into a powerful eccentric loading of those fibers. I'm not even going to go very far. I don't have to. It's work from each degree of the action. You don't have to go all the way through the range of the motion to get benefit. In fact, don't make the range of motion do the work for you. Activate the muscles with your brain and get more out of every degree of the range of motion. This goes for everything you do in working out, in your physical conditioning. Talk about that in my class all the time. Every millimeter of the movement matters, including before you start moving and as you come to a stop. So exercise on this leg, driving it into the ground. You can get a little bit closer to a 90-90 here. Driving it into the ground by squeezing my glutes, fixing my pelvis to my spine, lowering like a drawbridge. I'm not crumbling into the floor. Like a drawbridge, load those fibers eccentrically. Why is that an eccentric load? Because the muscles of my glute are being stretched around this curvature from femur to glutes, from femur to pelvis, as I lower, and then I'm going to fire them up and shorten them to concentrically activate them as I come up. So and you can, again, you're doing it with arms to load it with a little bit of assist, as she shows in the video. Why? Because maybe the entire weight of my upper body would be too much for my glutes to powerfully control in this movement, and I might compromise my form by trying, because the muscles would be giving out, right? That happens a lot. The body just thinks, oh, you want to get your face close to the mat? Okay, right? And it might give you options to get there that aren't what you're looking for to support your conditioning here. So with arms, and she shows it from the front, with arms, chest over the thigh, hinging strongly at your glutes, bringing it as far as you can, and firing down into that leg, even though you're firing the muscle and letting it yield. So you're firing it, stretching it. That's what makes it an active eccentric contraction. You're not just passively stretching it. You're actively stretching that muscle. Because if you were to have landed that foot, it can't afford to be a passive stretch. You need it to be an engaged eccentric loading for so many reasons in your gait cycle, right? Eccentric loading has a lot to do with the gait beyond just stabilizing your hips. So load it, stretch it under tension, drive the leg through the floor, come up like a drawbridge. Beautiful. Change legs. Practice your mobility, practice your balance, practice your coordination as you transition. Load it, squeeze down, lift on that spine, connect the pelvis to the spine, meaning move them as a unit. Bring your chest over the leg, loading the tension. Feel your glutes stretch, and your deep external rotators is the glutes and the rotators of the hip. The smaller ones and the bigger ones is what I'm trying to say. And then power up. Amazing. I love this exercise. Join me. Try a few on your own. Absolutely do these if you come to class. Notice the parallel with a lot of the work we do in class, a lot of the hip mobilization and strengthening we do, plies, they all are operating on this complex, and you want options. You want to have a variety of ways that you're stimulating this tissue. So if you can't get into this position, we've already talked about at least airplanes as one potential other, and if you're still interested in something else that you could do to work on this, ask me about variations that we can do in class, etc. All right, hope you guys are well. Keep walking strong, and talk to you soon.